Our Yamaha Riders event is well underway, and we shift our focus now to Gordon Whittington from North American Whitetail.
Gordon is one of the most well-known whitetail authorities, riders, guys that, you know, I would call a professional whitetail hunter out there. I mean, he's done this for decades. His family's been involved in it. He's traveled all over. He's talked to no telling how many people and shared stories back and forth. So to have him come into camp and join us for the Yamaha Riders event was really special.
I get to go on a lot of deer hunts. I guess I've hunted 40 states and provinces in the last 30-something years at North American Whitetail, and from Finland to New Zealand, all over North America, and you find yourself in a lot of different camps and hunting situations. I always love to come to Texas and to a deer camp here because there's always a real laid-back feel to it. I mean, the weather's almost always pleasant. You see a lot of wildlife. The food is always great. The company's great, and you know, whether you shoot a deer or not, that's kind of a bonus.
We started Gordon out on his hunt with the weather coming in a large box blind, probably almost, you know, a good 10 or 12 miles from the camp on another piece of property we had. We had a few shots of a couple pretty good deer coming in, but they weren't showing up. I mean, we went over there, they didn't show up. Felt like it was time to make a move and go and try to find, you know, another location that's really set up better. And as I began to explain to Gordon, I've got some scouting camera photos of some pretty good deer coming in there, but make no bones about it, this is a new piece of property. We've only had it for a couple of years. We don't even know necessarily what all is on this end of the ranch. We haven't spent a ton of time hunting over here, so be prepared for the unexpected.
Well, we've got a little setup right here. As you can see, it's kind of impromptu, but the deer don't know to look up here on this ridge because nobody's been hunting up here. So we have the element of surprise, kind of counteracting the fact that we're a little bit exposed, but we know deer feed down in this flat. In fact, there's one just came out right there. Looked like a young buck. They're starting to move early. Looks like might be a spike. Well, it's a little yearling buck. Just came out to feed out in this flat. That's a great sign. It's way before sundown. So that's a very good sign that these deer are undisturbed back in here. Hopefully some older bucks will show up.
You know, it just kept getting later and later in the day, but the rain had stopped and we felt like it was going to be a good afternoon, possibly to see a mature buck. It just felt like one of those times and one of those places where you could see one pop out at any moment. And sure enough, right before the end of shooting light and the end of camera light, we did have a really good buck come in.
You know, as hunters, we evolve. We go through lots of different stages, and there's times in our life where we want to shoot the biggest deer in our life and or the most. But Gordon is one of those guys that truly impresses me about wanting to shoot the most mature deer. He wants to shoot the deer he thinks the smartest, most wiliest, oldest deer in that area. He wants to shoot a deer that's going to be well past what most people would call prime. And he's not necessarily going to be concerned if it's got the biggest set of antlers or not. It's about the age class when it comes to hunting with Gordon Whittington.
Okay, let's do it. Shot felt good. Had to kind of shoot through a little bit of a hole there, but that's a big mature buck. Feel like I put a good hit on him. Had a pretty good body angle, but I lost sight of him as soon as the gun flared. So, not going to get in any big hurry to go over there. God. That's a nice big mature buck.
You know, you're always tempted to go right to your deer, especially if you feel like you've probably made a pretty good shot. And at the time I shot, I had no reason to think I hadn't made a good hit on the deer. I felt like he was hit. I felt like I had a good view of him. I didn't feel like I had any brush or any grass or anything between me and him. I didn't have any reason to think that the shot was off the mark. And so I thought, well, let's gather our stuff up. Let's go over here right at dark. It was getting late anyway. We gathered our stuff up. We go over there and we start looking and immediately find blood, which is, of course, what we expected. But within a few steps, I realized something wasn't quite right. We were starting to see some food particles in with the blood. That can only mean one thing normally. You have hit the deer behind the diaphragm and he is gut shot, which is never a happy moment of realization for a hunter because you know it's going to be a tough trail. That was a classic example of needing to stop right there, gather your wits, realize that it's not going to rain overnight, and decide to come back in the morning and really take up the trail and do it right. Well, the great thing about the morning after, if you will, is that we had a lot of experienced guys who had really been on a lot of deer trails and some tough trails, and we could put our thoughts together and realize that if we all get over there and systematically start weeding this thing out and start looking at the signs, start thinking about where the deer most likely had come from, because we figured that's where he would try to get back to, then we would start to sort that out kind of on the fly. And that's a great advantage.
It's great to have all hands on deck to basically go out, and I call it an Easter egg hunt because make no bones about it, when you've lost the blood trail and there's nothing else available, it's literally an Easter egg hunt. You fan out, everybody gets involved, and hopefully somebody gets lucky and finds that Easter egg.
Well, we've been looking now for this deer for probably, I don't know, maybe an hour, hour and 15 minutes or something this morning, and there's just not much sign to go on. Typical of a deer that's hit back and low like that. I mean, he's just not bleeding a whole lot. We found a little bit on brush, a spot or two of blood here and there on some of these main trails, and kind of coming back toward this bedding area, but honestly, that's just hunt and peck right now. We're just gonna have to just hope we can walk up on him, I guess, but he's out here somewhere.
Found him! Right over here,
I heard them say they found him right over here. That's awesome. All of a sudden we hear a shout coming from over on this open grassy flat with some bigger trees in it. And our buddy Vern has, lo and behold, spotted the dead deer. There's no sign leading to the deer, but Vern has seen the deer lying on the ground and has shouted to come to the deer, which naturally I was quick to do because I was just ecstatic that the deer had been found. I didn't obviously care who found it, I just wanted it found. It's cool for a guy who's never been on a deer hunt to be the one to find the deer. And you know, it's great anytime everybody wants to join in and help. You never know who's going to find the deer, and really you don't care. I mean, but it is so cool for a guy who'd never been deer hunting to be the one to walk up on this deer that was not an easy deer to find. I'm thinking maybe I should take him with me all the time. Look at this. Woo! Now here we go. Boy, look at the neck on this guy. He's obviously been out for a while. Let me lay that gun down there. Look at that. See if I can pull his head up here. That is an ancient buck. I mean, that deer, I knew he was old when he came out and we shot him, but good grief, he is really, really an old buck. Heavy, been rubbing a lot. You can see on his, up on his brows and his bases. Got an old kind of tan colored face, but just a beautiful Texas deer.
I'm gonna chalk it up to a lot of good luck. You know, that's just purely beginner's luck. That's basically a lot of guys coming together, spreading out and working towards one common cause of finding that deer as quickly as we could. And I'm just really, really happy that Gordon is able to sort of walk away with that buck.
Hey, congratulations, Gordon, for an adventurous entry into the Yamaha Whitetail Diaries.